It's Rivalry week, and probably one of the toughest games that we are going to play this year from a mental standpoint. All that and more on this episode of Alpine Garage Sports. All right, guys, I've been putting on Twitter for the past day kind of some scenarios and getting your feedback on what needs to happen for Nebraska. Should we do exactly the same game plan that we had with NDSU, or should we change that up? And I got some pretty significant feedback that we don't want to have the same game plan that we did at NDSU. And here's a caveat to that is our passing game looked really good. You know, we had some really, really big shots down the field. Jimmy Horn was an absolute freak for us. So was Travis Hunter. And we had some good production out of some of the other wide receivers as well. But what this comes down to me is that at some point, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I know some other folks have been saying it as well. I don't watch a lot of other channels just because I don't even have enough time to do my own videos, much less watch a lot of other channels. But from the limited amount that I have watched, everybody's kind of singing from the same playbook, which is we have to change a little bit for NDSU. So when we're talking about that, this is going to be a battle of QBs. And this is the biggest difference between this year and last year. Last year, we beat Nebraska pretty handily. And they had a terrible quarterback in Jeff Sims. This year, Dylan Riola is not going to be the same quarterback. So last year, they sacked us 8 times. And there were multiple turnovers in the game. And what we cannot do is we cannot give the ball back to Dylan Riola. So even though he is a true freshman, any opportunity that they have, they're going to use. Now, here's my number one key to the game that I used all of last year. So this is not anything new. Last year, I think every single game I mentioned it. And I'm going to mention it going into Nebraska as well. At some point, we have got to figure out time of possession. And the reason why is because we're not playing a bunch of daisy teams. We're playing really good teams this year. We're going to play Kansas State, and they look like monsters. Oklahoma State looked really good as well. We play Utah. I mean, these are teams that we cannot give them the ball. If we can have the ball for the majority of the time, we're going to keep it out of the hands of their offense, and we stand a better chance. Now, with our fast strike offense, when I mean fast strike is when we're throwing the ball a lot and we're getting some big yards. That's great. And I like it too. I mean, we're scoring a lot, and that's exactly what you want to do. You want to score some points. The problem is we're giving it back to, in this case, an offense that grinds the ball down. So we talk about Dylan Riola being just a fantastic quarterback, but he just manages the game well. And they run a lot. Nebraska runs a lot. Nebraska ran for 223 yards against UTEP. And I don't think they're going to run for that many yards against us, obviously. Nebraska had 284 yards in passing and 223 yards in rushing. So, I mean, it was a fairly balanced offense. So they ran the ball a lot. And they're going to do that against us as well because they know if they can keep it out of Shedeur's hands, they stand a better chance of winning. So that's what they're going to do. So as far as offense is concerned, we need to figure that out. And how does that look? So obviously, implementing the running game, even though last week the running game didn't look all that great, it did what it needed to do. You know, we had Dallin Hayden ran the majority of the plays. Charlie Offerdahl was our second running back as far as carries were concerned. And both of them were 3 yards per carry or less. But what they did do is they got key first downs. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that they got key first downs, and that's what we're going to need. We're going to need that running back halfback screen to get them out to a first down. We were 3 for 3 on that in the last game, and I want to say that all 3 of them were first downs. It could have been maybe 2 of the 3 were first downs. We got to stick to that, and Nebraska's defensive line is way better than NDSU's was. It's going to be harder. But we have to establish it sometime. But I'm not just talking about the running game. I'm talking about also using the tight end. So when I'm looking at the footage from last week, we're in 10 personnel a lot. We're not using the tight end very much in blocking schemes. And I think we need to change that up. And we need to implement the tight end a little bit more. I know we love our receivers and we love the 4 wide, but I think we need to get the tight end involved. Last year when we did that, when we were really prolific with a tight end, and I've said this in a lot of videos too, Michael Harrison was not a tight end. Michael Harrison was a receiver that was made into a tight end. So we used him in a tight end formation, and we got a lot of production out of Michael Harrison when we used him in the first 3 games, and we won those first 3 games. I think we have as good or better tight ends this year than we did last year, and I think that's obvious. And the fact that Savell Smalls has beat out Sam Hart for kind of the starting tight end position says a lot for our tight end group. I think we need to use them more. I think the blocking would be considerably better against a really good Nebraska defense. And also we have the option there for that really short route that can get the tight end involved, and being those big body guys, we could get quite a few yards maybe on first or second down just by using the tight end. So I really hope that we get to see more of that balanced offense, using the running game to kind of pound them a little bit, then using some screens in there too because they were really successful last week. And then also dropping the tight end in there because that really worked for us last year when we did it. And then obviously we have some really freaky wide receivers that once we do that and we kind of mix it up, make the defense commit a little bit more, I think that our passing offense is just really going to overwhelm them, and I think that we could actually carry the game at that point. One last note about defense, and again, I want to put an asterisk on this because it was UTEP. But UTEP had 56 yards rushing in that game. So does that sound familiar to you? Obviously, Nebraska's keyed in on the run. They can handle the run. That's not going to be an issue for them. Also, going back to time of possession, one of the things that I wanted to state was that Nebraska had the ball for 38 minutes in that game, and UTEP only had barely 21 minutes. Nebraska could have easily scored fast on UTEP. They could have easily scored fast on UTEP, but they didn't. They kept the ball. They grinded it out. They let the clock just bleed out. Theoretically speaking, they probably could have won the game 66-38 or 66-30 or something like that. But they didn't. They know how to work time of possession, and they did that extremely well. Now, on to our defense. Our defense last week, I thought, was markedly better against the run than last year. Now, we did give up 150 plus yards of rushing, but most of it was because of those squirrely quarterbacks that they have that were getting us when we were committed to other players. But a lot of it was the quarterbacks that they had and the fact that they really like to run the quarterbacks. We talked about it. You guys knew about it. And they did it, and they kept themselves in the game by doing that. Riola is not really a running quarterback, or at least he hasn't shown the propensity to want to do that a lot. So at this point, I think that's not going to be such a big deal. Their running backs, I think, are better for Nebraska than NDSU. They have 2 of them, Dowdle and Johnson, which in the last game against UTEP, they both ran for more than 7 yards per carry. So that's 16 attempts between the 2 of them for more than 7 yards per carry. In fact, Johnson carried, he had 1 big run, but he carried for over 9 yards a carry. So they're no slouches, and they used 6 or 7 running backs in that game. So they rotated their running backs quite a bit. So our defense needs to be able to plug those gaps and take on that run. And then also the edges got to contain. So if we can contain Dylan Riola in the pocket and make him throw, I think our DBs had a better chance against the pass than our defense does against the run. I'm just going to say that right now. I think if we did that and we made Dylan Riola pass, let's make him show us what he is good for. Let's make him show his 5 stars. And I think that's what we need to do, because if we let Nebraska run it down our throats, it's going to be a long day. Now let's look at the CU depth chart for the game. Our starting wide receivers, very similar to last year: Shepard, Horn, Hunter, and Wester. And then our line is going to be Seaton, Mayers, Zelinskas, Benson, and Brown. And then Savell Smalls at tight end, Sam Hart backing him up. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Charlie Offerdahl is leading the running backs again this week, but we know Dallin Hayden had quite a few runs in that game as well. I'd like to see the rest of them. I want to see Micah and Brandon just to see what they can do. There's no reason why we wouldn't run them, especially if we're trying to establish the run game. So let's empty our running back room on Nebraska and see what it can do. We have our defensive ends are the twins, Okunlola and Hayes. And then we've got Shane Cokes and Chidoze out there as well for defensive tackle to give us a start. And then linebackers, Woods and Bentley. We have our quarterbacks being Hunter and McKinney. Safeties, Sanders and Silman Craig. So that is very similar to last week. In the nickel, we're going to have Hodge and Harge. Jimmy Horn is going to be our kick returner, and our punt returner is going to be LeJonte Wester. So we have very similar setup to last week, and really the backups to all of these are going to be excellent. You know, we have BJ Green up there backing Samuel Kamola, Arden Walker backing up Dane Haynes. So I think that's going to be a key right there. Our defense against Riola is going to be really key. And if you look at our starters and our seconds in those key positions, I think we're going to be super strong against the run this time too. I do think that it's possible that Nebraska is going to get more than 150 on us. But if we can limit it to, let's say, less than 200, I think we're going to win. If we put this in a true freshman's hands and make him show us his 5 stars, I think that's our best game plan. So let me go back to the start. The number one key to this game is we have got to control the clock. Against NDSU, it was I'm going to get the exact here. We had 23 minutes and 16 seconds versus NDSU's 36:44. Now, we won that game. Awesome. It was against NDSU. This is Nebraska. And again, we play the other 3 teams that I talked about earlier. Time possession is going to be a big deal. We got to learn how to slow down just a little bit, and we got to control that clock just a little bit more, because I don't think we can win against these really elite teams without having the clock on our side. That said, I think this is going to come down to the last drive. I think this is going to be a last drive game. If Nebraska has the ball on the last drive, Nebraska could win this game. If CU has the ball on the last drive, I think CU could win this game. So I think that it's literally like that. So I'm saying that CU is going to have the last drive. I think Shedeur's magic on those last drives, and I wouldn't want the ball in anybody else's hands than his. And then at that point, if we've got 1:30 left in the game and he airs it out to whoever we can get it to, I think at that point we stand a really big chance of winning. And I'm going to put, everything that I've seen says 37-28, 35-28, 35-27, 31-29. I'm going to say it's going to be even lower scoring than that. I know last time I went way overboard and I thought CU was going to be 52-17. But keep in mind that if that ball hadn't hit that foot and if a couple other things hadn't happened, we could have easily won the NDSU game in the 40s. So I'm thinking that Nebraska is way tougher, and I think they're going to slow our offense down a little bit more than NDSU did. And so I'm going to say 24-20 is going to be the end result. And it's going to be a classic game. And we're going to come out with a win in a harsh environment. And we're going to carry that torch for a long time because we don't play them after this for a while. And that is what I'm saying based off of feedback that I've received from you. And I certainly think this is going to be one for the ages. That's a wrap from Alpine Garage Sports. I will be posting tomorrow another video right before the game. And then I'm hoping to go live during the game if you want to hang out with me. We'll see you in the next video.